What's up, humans? Welcome back to the Human Music Podcast. I am Luke Rain, and you're about to listen to episode 64, Music Artist Promotion. This week, we talk about the things that really matter when promoting yourself as an artist and which things do not. We touch on having a coherent brand, ignoring vanity metrics, not getting ahead of yourself, and the most important thing, focusing on the music first. Please take a minute to support our sponsors. These are all super dope producer resources, a lot of them free or incredibly priced. So, Dojo TV, free producer live stream classes from the Producer Dojo Senseis, free. The weekly download, where you can learn from Il Gates and his private weekly group lessons and get access to over 230 more episodes instantly in the archive for just $20 a month. And guest practices, where you can learn from Seth Drake at the Approach Institute. He is the best engineer we know, and your first class over there is free. The song of the week this week is one I produced with my guy Sam Shoemaker rapping on it, called Sharpen My Sword, off our joint EP, The Grimy Gospel, that came out in 2019. The links to that and all of the sponsors are right down below. Make sure you go support. Appreciate y'all. Now, without further ado, let's get right on into the episode.
Hello, people of Earth. This is Tesco with Rip Kenny and Trap Jesus, and you're listening to the Human Music Podcast. Woo!
Human Music Podcast. I like it. What's up, humans? We were just having a whole conversation without the record button going and realized, wow, this is probably what our podcast should be about. So let's jump right into it. Talking about promo and play counts and followers and vanity metrics and all that weird social media shit. And we are going to pick up kind of where we were and maybe even circle back around to some shit. Who knows? We're going to wing it. So where were we winging when winging was happening, guys?
Well, we were talking about how worth it is to actually pay for promotion, how worth it is to follow for unfollow, basically collecting vanity metrics, doing all of the stuff that makes you feel good instead of doing the actual thing, which is writing music that is good and connects with people.
Yeah, that is probably the most important part, isn't it? The actual music that's actually dope. And, but a lot of musicians focus 100% on doing that part. Oh man, I really got to get the music good, and then put it out in the world. Like, well, now that it's this dope, people will just flock to it, right? No. If people don't know it exists, how can they come flocking, right? So there's got to be a balance, and good God, what the hell is that balance, guys?
It's really difficult, but I would offer this. Think of it like a pyramid. Like the bottom layer that is necessary to build everything else off is the music itself. Like that is the widest layer. That is the most important foundation of the pyramid of a producer career. And that music has to be A level first, right? So if you're not at an A level with your music, don't spend a ton of time on the rest. Like as you build that pyramid wider, like build the next step up, which is, branding, promotion. I don't know what the rest of the pyramid looks like. I know music's at the bottom, but then like branding, promotion, like then maybe your team. And then at the very tippy top, we're talking like a Europe booking agent is like way up that pyramid, right? But all of that trickles back down to your music at the bottom of that pyramid. And if the music isn't good, you can't build a wider block on that pyramid above that music block that's just tiny that you haven't spent enough time on.
I really, really like that analogy in the sense that you can't build the smaller block on top of the bottom blocks if they're not solid or they don't exist. And all of the shiny stuff that people want, that makes them feel good. The alluring part of being an artist is the shit like follow for unfollowing and shit like that. And it's like, well, first off, is your music good? Then are you actually making meaningful posts and engaging with the people that already give a shit about you? Then is your branding on point? You know what I mean? It's like you can't do all of these steps just because, well, I mean, you can, but you're not going to leave a good first impression on somebody. And really, that's all you have nowadays. So if your branding's not on point, then you're just going to be collecting new fans. They're going to come to your page. They're going to see that nobody really gives a shit. The music is not great. You're not, even if they stay and they comment on a post or two, you're not engaging back with them. You're not creating any meaningful kind of dialogue in this community that you're creating. And you're basically just wasting time that could have been put towards actually making music and making something of yourself. Like, I think musicians are some of the best at mental masturbation because it's just a part of that creative aspect. And people, my friend had a really great quote he posted on Instagram. Shout out Yellow Liar. He said, people think they want success, but what they actually want is the feeling of success. And instead of chasing success, just actually put yourself in that feeling and actually do the things that are going to get you there. It's basically that whole idea of like, stop looking towards the destination because you're never going to get there. Just enjoy the journey. Like, it's not in the books for you. The same way playing a show in Europe, if you're in the States, probably isn't in the books for you right now, right? So, oh man, there was another video I watched that Kenny Beats was talking about the 10,000 hour rule, and he's like everybody basically like, if your music doesn't make you want to cry when you put it on from how good it is, you need to spend more time in the studio. And all of this advice that people are giving out on all of this secondary stuff only applies to that 10% of people who have actually put in the work. And chances are, more likely than not, that you need to just put your head down, say, fuck the Instagram page, fuck doing all of the... Actually, I'll say fuck 90% of the Instagram things. Engage with the people who already care about you, but stop investing all of this time to like come up with a little mascot before you've even decided like what kind of music you're going to make. And then you've perfected that style to the point where you can confidently say that nobody can fuck with you in that genre. And it basically puts you to tears every time you put it on because you're like, holy shit, this is the best of this.
Yeah.
I mean, podcast done, really.
Yeah, podcast
ready to drop the damn
Everyone,
mic, son.
Signing out. Peace among worlds.
Shortest podcast ever.
So it's funny because as you were talking, you literally like crystallized the pyramid in my head. Okay, so everyone, there's 5 levels. The bottom level is the music that you make. And remember, no level above any below can be bigger. You can't spend more time on the upper levels until your base levels are solid. So the bottom level is music. The second level is your branding, having a clear story for what your music is talking about, what your ethos is, what your colors and logo and all of that. Then once you have your music and your branding, your story, your identity locked in, then you work on your socials. You build up interesting things to talk about, posts that people would give a shit about. And that level is about building, incrementally a group of people that give a shit about your music first and your branding second. And so you got your music, then your branding, then your socials. And then once you have all of those, then you start working on promotion, because that promotion becomes really fruitful once they realize that your socials have cool things to look at, that your branding is consistent and there's a thread to latch onto, and that most importantly, your music makes them give a shit. So once you start promoting and you have those 3 levels dialed in, you're capturing way larger of a percentage of those people that come to your page and see all this stuff. And they're like, wow, okay, I actually identify with this person. I like what they talk about. I identify with their brand. And most of all, I like their music. Then once you have promotion, then that top level is your team, right? So then once you have all of those things, more likely than not, if you've really perfected those 4 levels, a manager opportunity is going to come knocking, a booking agent opportunity is going to come knocking. People are going to ask you to play shows because they found you and they like your stuff. Your socials are gaining traction. Your numbers on Spotify are growing organically, and you're noticing all these things, right? So that top level is when you leverage all of those things that you've learned into larger success, right? But you can't do any of those things without the prior level.
So just in case anybody's confused, if you're listening to this podcast, or even if you're hosting this podcast, there is a very good chance that you're still in the focus on the music and the brand page, because, we're not out here, if we were doing world tours, we might not have time for this podcast anymore. We still might make it, but, we're not all the way there either, and that's okay. But that means, just like we're talking about, we spend way more time thinking about getting this music right, making sure that we've got our signature sound nailed down, and getting that branding, but not a ton of time worrying about like, shit, what's our Instagram numbers look like? What's our follow to follower ratio? That's something we were talking about before we press record, is kind of the ridiculousness of how people are like, oh shit, I hit 3,000 Instagram followers, better unfollow everybody so my ratio looks really good.
And there you go.
Great. All these people that actually cared about you at the beginning of your thing just saw that you just realized next time they go to your page that you're not following them. They're like, oh shit, I guess this guy, I can't DM him anymore. Oh, okay, shit.
Yeah, you're kind of betraying all the people that were there for you. And to me, like, all of these activities are equally as cringe as you going around to collect participation trophies and ribbons just to be like, look how many participation ribbons I have. And yeah, it's pretty cringy, right? And the ironic part is people actually will stick around and support you and not care if you're following them back if you offer something back in value that's worth more than a follow back from you, which, I hate to say it, but most people's music is worth less than a follow back. That's why when you unfollow those people, that's why I don't fuck with you like that. Now, the other thing, when it comes to actually taking this to the next step, you have to solidify down what makes you unique, right? If you're doing vocals, it's going to be the things that you talk about, the topics, and in the way that you present them, right? So how many love songs are there? But what makes me want to listen to Daniel Caesar versus Future versus whoever else, they're like totally opposite on that spectrum of how they view relationships, for example. And that's why you see a lot of these common themes popping up. Or you could say within bass music, right? It's like, how many screechy dubstep artists are there? But how do they articulate the movement of their basses, for example? What other sounds do they complement it? Maybe one artist is more in a rave setting, one artist is more in like a deep club setting. And so I want to draw the analogy here for our YouTube listeners, right? If I'm buying this Nestle water bottle, I don't want it to be all things. I want water. And when I take a sip, I don't want to be surprised. Now, when I go to the store to buy water and I see one bottle that looks like this, and then I see one that looks like this,
with
which one am I going
to
buy? Yes, for everybody that's not watching, there's no label on it now. Which one am I going to buy? The one with the label, with a well thought out logo that clearly tells me what is in the bottle and probably has some facts on it, like 100% spring water or whatever, to paint it in a better kind of context? Or am I going to take ambiguous bottle with no label and it looks like water and probably is water, but there's no like, trust between me and the brand, because I'm like, I don't know what brand this is. I don't know what the reputation is. And I don't know what they're trying to be. And so this is how a lot of you are approaching going to people. You come in with this, honestly, it looks more like this. You come in with this shitty little bottle and you start asking for pity likes. And you're like, hey, I'm starting a water bottle company. I know you love Nestle. I know you love whatever brand, Fiji, Smart Water, whatever. But here's my shitty little bottle, and I would greatly appreciate a like and share and tell all your friends about it. And it just gets more ridiculous the more you think about it, but it's not obvious until you draw the comparison. This is what a lot of people are doing, dude, and it's cringy, and please stop.
Because so
at the end of the day, your mom might take a sip of the water and she might tell her friend, but her friend sure as hell is not going to tell anybody if they already have established some kind of reputation with Nestle, let's say, and you're coming at them with the same exact thing. Now, if let's say it's got a little flavoring in it, or it's got whatever, it's going to stick out without the brand, but it's not necessarily going to build a reputation. People might be like, hey, you see that mystery bottle going around? It's got a little tinge of watermelon in it. Like, it's pretty good, but I don't know what it's tied to, or what they're about, or what they're trying to promote, or how reputable they are. And so these are the things you got to think about when you start approaching people, because like we said earlier, I think before we started, right? It's like you have one impression to make with people. Don't, for the love of God, make that impression be this shitty crinkled up water bottle with no label and no specific purpose. What am I buying? Is it water? Is it vodka? Is it soda water? What's in here?
Is it ethyl alcohol?
Exactly. Make sure you clearly define what your product is. So what genre you're doing, or what genres you're doing, if you're going to be interjecting some other aspect that's going to tie it together. You need to be focusing in on something that not everybody is doing exactly the same, and then branding it. And just to tie a nice little bow on that, think of Fiji water. Like, really, what are they providing besides, like, it tastes like a little, like, extra air or something or minerals, and they have a square bottle.
That.
And that's all it took.
Yeah, right? They came with the square bottle and put that little picture on the back that you look at through the water. That was their innovation. Like, so many companies have done water, but classy, right? Theirs isn't even classier than any of the other classy ones. It gives you, like, there's some that are like, oh, this one actually bubbled up from the springs and the Alps through this special mineral rock, and it's got health in it, and it comes in a glass bottle and all that shit, right? And it's $12 water. Fiji's not even that classy, but it's like, it stands out. I bought it many times just because it stood out more, and my hand happened to grab it, and it was just fucking water at the airport, so who cares?
Oh, sorry. I just got real excited because I know the perfect example that I'm sure people have seen in the last little while. That is perfect example of this point. Have you guys heard of Liquid Death?
Yes.
No.
Murder your thirst. Fuck yeah.
Extreme. Exactly. That's the energy it brings. And all it is, it's canned water with a skull on it, and it says murder your thirst. That's it. And I've been seeing it pop up everywhere. And if you would have asked me 3 years ago, I would have been like, nah, dude, like, all the water options are covered. Like, what more do you need? And then they came in there and like, murder your thirst. And just fucking put a skull on it and put it in a can. And there you go. Successful company.
Yeah. So, I mean, both of these examples are, people are looking for what you've got, and they already have places that they know they can get it from. How are you positioning yourself, which is literally marketing, putting yourself in the market in a position to stand out. How are you standing out from other people? And I don't expect you to get the answer to this right now. Just know that that's the actual question, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and it's yeah. So go ahead. Sorry.
That was it, pretty much.
Okay.
Go for it.
I was going to say the water analogy is slightly tough to compare to music for the simple fact that most water tastes the same. But the important thing to note here is that thirst murder, death metal, sparkling water would not work if the water actually tasted like dirty, sock filtered swamp garbage. If the water sucked, or if the water was like,
Not water.
it's okay, like the water has to pass a threshold of quality first, and then the branding gets people to go, this is my water. Like, even if the water is only 5% better than the next guy, or maybe even basically the same,
or worse,
then
even,
or a little bit worse, the branding that you can identify with, this is my water, that's going to get people to come back, right? But that bottom level building block had to be there first. Thirst murder sure as hell didn't just go take some tap water, run it through a soda stream, and distribute it worldwide. I'm sure they did at least a couple $1 million worth of taste testing for a worldwide product that everyone is talking about that is distributed all over the place. Like, that level of company doesn't distribute a product unless they're sure that the product passes a level standard of quality, right? So that's the biggest thing to know. It's so funny too, because your water analogy, holding up the water bottle with a label and then taking the label off and then crumpling it, it's like so devilishly accurate to, like, why would I give a shit about that? Like, even if the water is the same, why would I ever buy that water if it doesn't look professional? And it just establishes the layers of quality that build upon themselves that equal a brand and a product and a thread of ideology that you can center with and that you continue to return to. Circling back around to our discussion, I wanted to make sure we got the rest of the story, Luke, that you were telling about playlisting. To catch everyone up, we were talking about paying for playlisting for Spotify and the pros and cons, yada yada, and I wanted to delve back into that, starting with the story that Luke has about playlisting.
Well, I guess like to step one step back, even because my story was in response to yours. That was like, if you
let me start,
like,
then
pay for listens campaigns, it can fuck you, and here's why.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, playlisting on Spotify is a very, very double-edged sword, and something that I've realized I don't want anything to do with now. I just don't bother. Because the biggest factor that has grown my Spotify to what I would consider a healthy, listenership is Discover Weekly and the recurring bumps that Discover Weekly sends music that I've already made that is doing well to more people, and I don't have to work to get a gigantic boost in plays every week. Every Monday I'm checking, what hit Discover Weekly this week and in what way and what's popping off. And Discover Weekly is a function of your play to listener ratio, right? So how many times a specific listener listens to the same song of yours. It is a function of how many people like the song versus how many people listen. And it is a function of how new it is and a few other smaller things, like how many different media outlets across the internet are mentioning your name, maybe mentioning this song, and some other smaller stuff that's ancillary. But for the most part, it doesn't matter who you are, how big you are. If you have a song that half the people that listen to it like it, that a quarter of the people that listen to it share it, send it to a friend, and that half the people listen to it 3 times in a row, I guarantee that song is going to hit Discover Weekly and that it is going to blow up and that you're going to continue to get recurring boosts from Spotify, right? And the reason that I just can't be bothered with playlisting nowadays is because playlisting hurts all of those things. Playlists are typically consumed by passive listeners, whether you're at the gym, whether you're on a drive, whatever you're doing, you're working and you're listening to a playlist. You're even if you really like a song but you don't love it, you're not like just captured by it. It's really hard to get someone to stop that playlist, whatever they're doing, while they're doing a passive listening session, to go, wow, this song was sick, like it, send it to a friend. Most people are going to listen through, think it was cool, and then move on to the next one because they're doing something else while they're listening to that playlist and consuming your music.
That makes a lot of sense, than being a passive listener, and that's why they chose somebody else is curating music for me today. Let me hit go on this playlist and go about my day while the shit just rides.
Exactly.
As opposed to I am on my phone clicking like, putting shit on my own playlist, going through, following the artists that I dig. You know, that active listener, those people are where you got to get those. That's where you're going to find your 1,000 true fans, right?
Exactly. And some people might be thinking, okay, well, Discover Weekly, that's a playlist. Why is this any different? Because when someone's listening to Discover Weekly, it is not a gym playlist. It's not a driving playlist. It's something that they actively are listening to, and they know that it is new music that they could be interested in, and that they are on alert for the fact that they might find an artist that they didn't know of that they are going to love in the future. And so that is my 30,000 foot view of why I think playlisting is a very double-edged sword that you should really think hard about where it fits into your promotion strategy, if at all.
Yeah,
and
sorry,
I was gonna segue to Luke, who had a story about it, being beneficial. So if you want to jump in.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a few examples from my career, artists I've produced for getting put on playlists that just keep on giving play counts. Something I did not think of when I was enjoying all of those plays on our songs that are helping our overall numbers grow was those listener to follower, listener to like, listener per how many times they listen to the song. I didn't think of those ratios in that scenario, but I do have, good and bad experiences with playlisting. Like, some of the good ones are like, somebody went to Submit Hub and, put in a song and it got placed on this, a playlist from Mexico called Canciones para Dormir, music to sleep to. This is a chill R&B song. Plus, it's in English, so if you're a Spanish language listener, the lyrics aren't going to keep you awake. And it got put on this, my song "Do You" by Wonder Wish got put on this Canciones para Dormir playlist, and it gets like 50 plays a day from that, just perpetually. And a couple years ago, a song I did with Sam Shoemaker called "Sharpen Your Sword" got put on a playlist called Motivation Gym, and that shit gets hundreds of plays a week still a couple years later off of that playlist, because like 20-something thousand people subscribe to that playlist and return to it over and over when they go to the gym, apparently. So I think it really depends what playlists you're on to whether there's even a possible reason that could outweigh what Rip Kenny's telling us. Because like in that case, if people come back to the same playlist and listen to the whole playlist a bunch of times, then you're getting multiple plays per listener. And if they're in that playlist, the same playlist a lot, there's a better chance that they're going through and being like, you know what, this particular song is my shit. I need this in my library. I need this on my other playlist too.
Yeah.
But man, hearing it from the way you say it and combining that with my experiences of, this playlisting company will put it on these different playlists that have this many subscribers and you put it on the playlist and you go, okay, it'll be up for 4 weeks on our playlist. And then you realize that, okay, yeah, you got a lot of followers on that playlist, but nobody listens to your shit. Because even though I'm near the top of your playlist, I've got, I paid $80 for the playlisting and I got a grand total of like 65 plays out of the shit. It's like, that is not worth anything. Whereas other times, like a homie, kid I grew up around in Seattle, has been curating a playlist of his favorite Seattle hip hop shit and put one of my Christmas beats on last year, and just his playlist alone was like 10,000 plays because the people who listen to that playlist really like that playlist and keep coming back and put that shit on loop. So it's like, and I got plays from like Japan and Germany and all over the place, and it's like, wow, that's really cool that, the homie really liked my song and put it at the top of his playlist in December, and it got thousands of plays, and my music was exposed to tons of people for free. So there's definitely different levels to different playlists. There's a bunch of fake shit. There's a bunch of really scammy bot-fueled playlisting. We've seen how that plays out when there's like a slap and Spotify decides to delete a bunch of people's songs that have been using that shit.
Yeah. So I have a question. That Sharpen My Swords song by Sam Shoemaker and yourself. Great song. You guys should go listen to it.
Hey.
But B, so has that song hit Discover Weekly? I'm just personally curious.
For sure. For sure it has hit Discover Weekly. You know what? I'm gonna pull up my Spotify for artists real fast.
Yeah. And while you do that, I'm gonna talk about a couple things that you reminded me of while saying that. The gym motivation playlist that song is on, I'm willing to put substantial money on the line that playlist was not a playlist that Sam or you interacted with or paid to get on, because any pay for playlisting service normally, like you said, is like a 4-week, 8-week, at most 3-month timeline for having your song off it, and then they take it off, right? So if that song has been on a playlist for years, that means that person found your song maybe on the original playlist that was a paid for playlist to get some boost, and then left on there because it's a good song, right? And then the other thing, basically, just to think about, that song that is being returned to on that playlist. Do those plays, did that initial boost, if it was put on a paid playlist initially, did that result in Discover Weekly play? So I'm curious about that.
It's looking like, this song has been out since like a whole 2 years now.
Yeah.
So that's one thing to consider. But it's averaging around, 200 plays a day. It's in the last month, it's gotten 5,000 plays, and most of them have been in that one playlist. Only 3% currently in the algorithmic. There's like I looked real quick, in the last 7 days, there's been 9 Discover Weekly plays and like a couple thousand plays from that playlist. So it's currently not driving traffic to Discover Weekly, but yeah, I'm not exactly sure when it came out. Let me check this and see. Okay, can only do a year of stats, it turns out. But yeah, it's most of it fairly steady. I don't think it's doing a ton on the algorithmic playlist, though. It looks like.
Sure, and not to say that playlists don't have a place. Playlists, like, you need a certain amount of traction in order for Discover Weekly to find your stuff, but it's better to get on a big playlist, like you said, through a homie that liked the song, that put it on a playlist that people are listening to, that generates real plays, that help the stats, that the listeners are, not bots. They're people that are interested in the music on that playlist, and therefore more likely to actually interact with it, right? And then the Submit Hub is an interesting one. For me, I've found that the songs that I knew probably leaned more into an already established genre, like Forever, for instance. I submitted to so many playlists on Submit Hub. Probably, I don't even need to go look at the stats on Submit Hub to know that I probably submitted to like 80 playlists and got like maybe 3 or 4 placements. The hit rate on Submit Hub is really low. And then for anything else that I would say is a song that broke genres, and that I would consider doesn't fit nicely anywhere, the hit rate goes down substantially. Even with songs that arguably are doing really well, Submit Hub has been a source of frustration for myself because a lot of the playlist curators are looking for something that fits their established sound that they know that their listeners are looking for in that given genre, and that is going to fit nicely in their catalog of other stuff because they have interest to protect in the music that's on there, making sure that their listeners like it.
Which
so they're
is
not
good
Yeah.
because that means they're not just like pay to play. Hey, anybody can get on here if you come up with the cash, and that's why nobody listens to the playlist, because there's no curation. Because people come to a playlist for the curation. Somebody
Exactly.
with good taste took the time to put these songs together for me.
Yeah.
It's like the same reason you go to a DJ set.
Exactly. And so if you're making music that fits nicely into like, gym motivational workout music, or, whatever else like that, like, rave music, or, happy songs to dance to, or whatever. If your songs fit nicely into a playlist or a genre specific thing, like Submit Hub might be really fruitful for you. But I've found that it's definitely a double-edged sword. Like it's hard not to attach your sense of self-worth in that song to the feedback that you're getting. And on Submit Hub, when you send it to 80 people and 75 say, nah, we don't really like it, there's a lot of people that will just copy and paste a response. It's like, oh, you need to work on your mix down, and the drop just didn't really hit us very well. It wasn't really, work on your songwriting or this or that. And then I'm like, motherfucker, like, I know that mixdown's not that bad. Like, 3 other people said the mixdown is incredible, but it just doesn't fit our vibe. It's just like, it starts to become a little frustrating getting all that feedback from people that just don't really give a shit because they get so many submissions.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind. But for anecdotal evidence, just on, we'll use Forever as an example, because that's a song that's done really well on, Discover Weekly and whatnot. Out of 361,000 total plays on Spotify, 200,000 of those came from Discover Weekly.
Wow.
That's a fuck ton.
Yeah.
And a lot of the recurring plays after that probably happened from people that listened to it on Discover Weekly and liked it, added it to their own playlist to listen to later, right? So that's the kind of needle moving thing I'm talking about here to keep in mind. Like, if you get your song in front of the right people that are going to like it, it starts to build traction. Discover Weekly sends it to a small test group. All of those people like it because the people that you've sent it to already had a very high hit rate because they like you, they like your music, they like, yada, yada, yada. That small, it's going to be small at first, and you're going to feel like, it's not really gaining traction quickly enough. But, that song came out in May of last year. It's now June of the following year, and those are the stats, right? So it builds really quickly, but then it becomes exponential as you reach that point at which Spotify realizes that a very large percentage of the people that listen to the song like it, play it multiple times, share it with their friends. And then that's when the real passive traction starts to happen. And that's the stuff that moves the needle. And so, yeah, just for myself, realizing how important those percentage metrics on like to listener, play to listener, those types of things are, I just don't, even if a song is only at 10,000 plays, 20,000 plays on Spotify right now, I'm still not tempted to send it to a playlist, because I'd rather that those 20,000 plays have 4,000 people that liked it and 8,000 people total that listened to the song, and on average 2.5 listens per listener, right? Those are the songs that build slow, but that once they hit that critical point of Spotify, over 10,000 plays or whatever the threshold is, that it's like, okay, this song has enough social proof that we're going to start sending it to more people, then it can go exponential. But if you've shot yourself in the foot right out of the gate with a playlist, and now you only have a 2% like to listener ratio and a 1.2 plays per listener count, it's going to be really hard to break out of that, because those numbers are so staggering on the listeners in a playlist, but not in the metrics that you need, right? So
totally
personal evidence.
So I want to kind of just tie everything we talked about, and I wholeheartedly agree. I want to bring it back to that water bottle example and just summarize what not to do and what to do. And then I'd love to hear if you guys have anything to add. Do not send out shitty water bottles. Do not send out mystery flavor water bottles. Make sure your branding is on point and that you have a product that is in some way different to a consumer base that is looking for that product or something similar, right? So Liquid Death came in the water market, but they did it slightly differently. They didn't invent water. They didn't do anything fancy. Now, the other thing with Submit Hub, Instagram, we covered Spotify, I would say to a lesser extent, but definitely by the day it gets harder. Facebook is already a shithole as far as I'm concerned. YouTube is pretty much a struggle. The problem is you're bringing your shitty water bottle to the water bottle convention where you're competing with Nestle and Fiji and Liquid Death, and they got parades and mariachi bands and drummers, and you're trying to sell these shitty crinkled water bottles out of your backpack. And maybe, people will do it out of pity, or you'll reach out to people and they'll share it out of pity. But the thing is, it has no actual reach, because they're sharing it out of pity. You're actually asking something of them. You're taking value instead of providing value so that you can feel good about yourself. So, you got to be real with yourself and ask yourself, what do I want more? A successful music career, which would require exercising patience and investing copious amounts of time to reach the level I want, or some false sense of 1% success that I'm going to get out of pity, and really I'm just going to annoy everybody else, and nobody's going to get real with me for 45 minutes to explain why I'm actually being an asshole by asking them to share this for me, and just so that I could feel good, right? What you need to do is if you're actually serious about this, you need to put in that time, make something that is so undeniably good and can fulfill some kind of thing for somebody, right? So don't just create music aimlessly and then tell people, please share this for my ego. You need to be addressing a group of people that you're trying to target, whether it's water drinkers or vegans versus meat eaters or whatever. And you need to supply something to them, and you need to do it in a way that's slightly different from everybody else. The thing is, it's just not going to last. Like, you can't write music with no kind of context. You need to be thinking of like, all right, is this for the headbangers that love deep, wonky basses at festivals? Or is this for people that have been heartbroken? Or is this for people that are, going through the struggle with me, like the artists, the creatives? Like, what people are you catering to, and what kind of moods and vibes are you trying to give them? And then the last thing I would say is you need, when you got your water bottle and it's not crinkled and shitty and the branding is on point, you're not going to go to a place to promote it that has already been overrun by corporations who have way more money than you will probably ever have in your life. and try to compete with them. That's like you picking up basketball, practicing for 2 months, and stepping in with the Chicago Bulls and telling people that you should be on the team out of pity. Everybody, people might be too nice to say something to you. Maybe the occasional person gives you the dose of truth and you call them an asshole for it. But the thing is, you're never getting on that team. So you need to be going on Discord. You need to be going on Reddit. You need to be going on TikTok. You need to be going to places where the little man has just as much influence as these big corporations. And you need to not cater to everybody. You need to go there and find the specific people you're trying to target and know exactly what you're providing them. And again, don't go in with the ask. Don't go in for the grab. You need to make sure that it's targeted towards somebody that will actually benefit from this and gain value. And you need to build a connection with them.
Yeah.
Simple as fuck. And nobody does it. And you'll find that all things in life that will get you where you want are simple as fuck. And nobody does it. You just got to be real with yourself.
Yeah, that makes sense, man. Like really targeting, it really harkens back to Rip Kinney's point of getting the right people to listen to your shit as opposed to trying to get anybody and everybody to listen to your shit, because one pity listen is one pity listen. No, but that person is never going to listen to it again. They probably didn't listen to the whole song. Whereas, a completely different person might hear the same song, fall in love with it, and put it on loop. There's a song by something something called Flutter that came out recently that I heard on my release radar, and each time I listened to my release radar like 3 times over the weekend. Each time it came up, I was like, ooh, and I made sure I liked it. I put it on a playlist, and then yesterday I turned on Spotify. What should I listen to? And the top thing was Flutter by something something. You should listen to this again. I'm like, you're right. And I pressed play, and the shit was just set to loop the album. And I ended up listening to the song like 9 times in a row while I did shit around my house. And I kind of blinked and was like, okay, now I think I've overdone this song for the moment. But they got a playlisting and like 10 total listens over 4 days from me because they found the right fucking fan for that song. Like, apparently I was following something already, but I don't really know much about them, but now I need to, because this particular song really caught my attention and I am the right person for it. And, allowing some like Spotify's algorithms to do that for you is a good play, because they have all the data about these people and their listening habits and what they like, and they can break songs down very granularly. And my algorithmic playlists are incredible. I like almost everything that comes up on them, at least a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I guess the trick is to figure out where and how to target that very slim subset of the population that is waiting for your music, your style, your sound, your brand, your vibe, your skull on the water can. Right? Like, why will these people love it that much, and who are they, and where do they hang out?
Yeah. And
that's the hardest part. It used 100%. To be just fucking hyper target them on Facebook, and all of a sudden with the new iOS update, Facebook advertising has fallen apart. So I shut off all my ads until the dust settles, because I didn't want to burn money for no reason. Like I was saying with that "Do You" song, as like that, the week that song dropped is the week Facebook broke, and I put a lot more money into that song on Facebook than we put into Submit Hub, and my money didn't do shit. I didn't see the slightest bump on that tune. And another song I came out with the next week, same shit. So I just turned off all my Facebook ads. I don't know what to do yet, or where my fans are yet. And that's okay. But I know I'm not going to run around asking for pity likes from random people, or even people that are my friends that just don't like the genre. Like, hey, will you please go listen to this EDM song, even though I know you only listen to pop music or hip hop or rock or whatever,
Yeah.
it's not going to help anybody.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to note, to bring it back around, that what we're talking about, how to game Discover Weekly for maximum benefit, that I would lump into the promotion phase. And that is only important once you have music that is absolutely A quality, a brand that is true to you, that makes sense, that's cohesive, and you know, socials, some sort of presence that people can stick around and keep up with you on, right? Because all of those things ridiculously magnify your chances of the effort that you put into those promotions being more fruitful, right? But I would say the number one thing, more than all of this other stuff that we're talking about, is the music has to be absolutely A quality, and it has to be like a authentic. It has to be an authentic representation of your taste and your style and what you like, because people want to share and like and tell their friends and listen to multiple times songs that are authentic and that they feel like they can attach their identity to and vibe with, right? So don't forget any of the prior steps before, you know, trying to game all these algorithms, because you're probably gonna get frustrated.
Yeah. Even if you're doing it right,
even if you're doing it right. Exactly. Yeah.
And we're not talking about like, oh, I think Macklemore makes bad music, or I hate Steve Aoki's music, or whatever. Like, no, because those guys make objectively quality music that some people love and some people don't.
Yeah.
And no matter what your music is, some people won't like it. Good. That means, you know, you're not catering to everybody, like we were talking about earlier. But just got to get to that threshold of quality. You know, you got to be, there's a barrier to entry quality level to even stepping foot in the arena. And you got to get there before, please get there before you try and throw a bunch of money at, you know, advertising, or, you know, try and get a manager.
Facts. As soon as you put your shit up on Spotify, you're not competing with your local community or your dubstep friends or whatever. You're competing with the big players. Like, even if you're in dubstep, you're competing with Drake in a sense. Maybe not all of your listeners, you know, listen to Drake, let's say, but he's still going to be the one that's promoted. You know, when you get those ads as soon as you get on Spotify, where it's like the huge artists, the Drakes, the Weekends, the Taylor Swifts, even if you don't listen to them, they get that huge banner that notifies you every time they drop. It's like all of these things are competing for your attention. Now, obviously, right, if you're in that like style of like Virtual Riot, or if you're in that style of whatever, you're still competing with every other artist because they're all available on that platform as well. Maybe the people aren't going to go necessarily search out for them, but it's still a place where that attention can go. And so you need to have a very compelling argument, or like, you know, value proposition through your music for me to be more curious to check out what you just did than Drake's new album just dropped and like, fuck it, I don't know what I'm going to listen to. Maybe I'll scroll through that. No, like, you should have a compelling enough uh like pull in people that when they log on Spotify, that they don't forget who they were about to check out because they just hit that doobie. They're so stoked to hear what you got going on because they know they can't get it anywhere else, that there's not a chance it's going to slip their mind. There's not a chance that even the biggest artist in the world is going to be able to steal that from you, even if Spotify uses all of their power to give them that huge ass banner ad. That's how you got to be thinking.
Woo! 100%.
That's it.
I think that's a mic dropped, a bow tied, and another episode in the books, humans.
Woo.
Man, appreciate everybody for listening.
Hopefully
we went on a little journey today. But yeah, peace out, everybody, and peace among worlds. Ha 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 ha.
Woo.
All right, humans, we appreciate y'all so much for being here. Remember, wherever you're at listening or watching this, make sure you subscribe, drop a comment, a like, depending on where you are. Leave a rating and review if you're on Apple Podcasts. It all helps so much. Follow the podcast at The Human Music Podcast everywhere except Twitter, where we're at Human Music Pod. Next week, we will be back at you with episode 65 called Common Producer Mistakes. Are you making them? For sure. But that's okay. We'll tell you about them in just a week. One more time, the song of the week playing behind me is a song I produced for Sam Shoemaker called Sharpen My Sword. Click the links in the description for all that good stuff. Till next week, y'all. Peace. Peace among worlds.
I like it.